So, first poem I'm going to read was inspired by the woman who is here tonight, Marjorie Laughlin. One day when I was living up in Edmonds with my family, she came over with gifts and then handed me another thing, which was this nice book. And it was by her. And she said, oh yeah, I just wrote a poetry chapbook. And just like it was nothing, she just did that and created this beautiful book. And I read it and it was lovely and it was really inspiring that she just wanted to create that. And she said that it was from looking at a sunset one day. And one day after that, I was holding my baby to try to get her to sleep. And we were living in Edmonds, and you could see the Olympic Mountains, and it was dusk, and it was just so beautiful. And this is the poem, and it's called The Dusk. Breeze encourages the evergreen's rhythmic bow. All hail the sun's descent down. A sparrow duo flutter off to find a branch and together watch. Orangey pink sky halo the Olympic silhouette. Hallelujah, piano composed, the Romeo to this Juliet. Three clouds form from center to right, try to articulate a point of plight. Three fish following a point, a path, going upstream, right to left. No, they're two planes, one pointed head on at another, taking flight. Third is bold and oval, that's an eye, but that one's not watching the sky. The past people in guises, watch how living behave and heat rises. Welcome. So, for this next poem, for the sake of poetry and words, I wanted to ask you for a word that you think of when you think of poetry. What word comes to mind?
Was rhythm, maybe.
Rhythm, words,
Comfort,
comfort,
honesty,
honesty,
Pain.
expression,
Pain.
expression,
death,
Paradox.
Questioning.
paradox, questioning. Thank you. One of the words that first comes to mind for me is the word peace. And so this poem represents that. It's called Amend Men Too. It's not about peace, but it's perpetual pursuit at the speed of the bare minimum and then given a little scoot. After shooting 9,092 loons, this handheld, militant-like killer is on the loose, but its amendment remains resolute. Let's speed the founders up on this truth so the vehicle of violence isn't in the driver's seat too. Lincoln kept the Union, but his life was taken with a flicker. MLK Jr.'s peaceful revolution was marred by a coward. When the Kennedys got on board with the mission, swiftly was their succession. In this instance, technology wins at over-effective. In one man's hand, the decider of fate, and all it takes really is to live in the United States with a trigger's pull and a mind null. doesn't take muscle, bravery, or wit, just pain and flit and split. Okay, so this next poem gives my pen name, Otissus, its poetic meaning. And it's an acrostic poem, if you visualize it in that way, with the first letter of each part, or each letter of my name in the first one, in each line. And it's called In a Name. O fills the circle of life's perimeter. T marks above ground and under, perpendicular. I affirms ideas within, it's personal. S spreads love like its stroke suggests infinity. Us, whose numerical power equals greatest responsibility. So this next poem is called 1984, and for a show of hands perhaps, for anybody who was born around that time, 1984, or raised children who were born 1984?
Earlier than that. Earlier than that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, a part of writing poetry is writing about things that shape me and that unites, or that shapes me and unites everybody, possibly like across the generation, is through the year you were born, or so it's called 1984. Born on week 3 of 1984, a gen of overindulged kin, materialist, midriff, and fad-driven, on the precipice of excess, with new Adidas puffy jackets. From the mall on the reg became a skater's friend, but Reagan would rather your mom just spend. If you had a TV or two, at least one was humming to commercials trying to sell Dunkaroos as the truth. Highly touted were the smallest of logos, usually buckled when 6 deep backwards in the Volvo. Recycling was on the crest of existence, with folded over baggies dominating lunches, high school paychecks going straight into Abercrombie and Fitch's, entering career fields with depression pressing us, and as tech-ified economy drives us on the tatters of tradition, is a chilling realization, like instead of giving back to the ways of yore, they get our backs as we fixate on what's up next. Our culture is hereby the brand name we swear by, riding the wave of emissions stretch to its current apex. Do we chug our loads to and fro? We are of the same generation, but on a different Roman brick, on a different layer. Each view is skewed, each chirp is heard. You can call mine a wordy bird. I was a little overexcited when I got up here, and I wanted to open with a different poem that I just wrote for this evening, but I wanted to just do something fresh. And it's called Us. Intellect expressed. So part of the exercise of self-expression for poetry and self-improvement is by way of opening up. And one of the forms of poetry called confessional really grabbed me to honor my self-improvement in that way. So, hold on. No, I want to do this poem first, and then I'll get to that one. Sorry, but it's just like the flow kind of is better. Also in my bio, I talked about soccer, and this moment in this poem happened when I was playing for the Women's Sounders, and I was working full-time, and it was summer, and it was hot, and I didn't, spend the day mentally preparing for this game or for my body in that way, and this is the scene, and this is the moment that happened. It's called Soccer. Artificial grasses are radiating the air I'm heaving. Looking above the plain, just ahead, in the distance, I can see them waving. While competing for a drop-kicked ball at the 50, I sacrifice my head again to keep it from going by me, but turn it to the side as the opponent is also up for the ride. My mission succeeds, but at the expense of a seconds-long setback. Wherewithal is scattered. Next, I run back to defend the oncoming attack, but that's where my thinking ends as she dribbles by me like I'm playing pretend. Walk towards out of bounds closest at dead balls next, knowing my replacement is pertinent. Medic tells me 3 words to remember in a few minutes. On the bed that these balls rest on the bed that blades rest on are peppercorn-sized balls of wannabe soil, except that water doesn't absorb and heat makes them boil. Okay, so the reason why I didn't do any of this until after I was done doing all that. It's called Sticks and the City. Like a lattice-shaded confessional wall is through which my demonic vice in detail, inhaling that rapturous vapor initially happened when it was past. My head and mouth said, "No, yeah," then exhaled with the wind off a deck in Magnolia. Fresh air to breathe, coupled with relief against competing Belltown speakers, sure makes for a cheaper change-up between cocktail landmarks. And for shyer than your average person, matches strike can ice break a conversation. Once a day or less, loosely habitual, my hidden freedom revisits, and I salute the giving in to this ritual. Its scent is calorie pacifying and takes me back to wobbling in heels on the cobblestone of Post Alley. Confessed is knowledge on the better of, but this substance has won against will and rationale. It's what the addicts usually settle on, for its pleasure is a guilty one. And with a nodding off toddler securely in the stroller and the view of Point Hamilton speaking and imagery, a 5-minute at ease piece, I confess, is happening. This is, I have no idea how much time, but this is the last poem that I have for tonight. And it is while pursuing poetry and also wanting to be a student of the art. I found myself gravitating towards more reading about the poets and their lives and how that forms their art form, and was captivated by that and inspired. And so this last poem is just dedicated to poetry. Dream of wanting this. So far, the game's got a player in the film room watching tape. Its shelves deep and laddered, Miss Dickinson's intrapersonal existence, to nary praise nor publication, still completed tens of hundreds, or the pioneering rhetoric that stood in the corner and defended were as a means of release and taking ownness of their realness. Though none can quaff like Edgar Allan Poe or sing whilst contained like Maya Angelou, the lessons of the classics are subjective, wide in census, and capture unique lenses. However, to read the craft precedes its creation realized, then the bookmark's post is spinal jammed before the latter's kitsch blurs plagiarized. On Edgar Allan's less taken road, with presence as a blank canvas, love's wisdom is dropped by Tennyson to do some sooner than it left unattempted, like Allen Iverson scoffing at questions regarding practice. Do the passive eyes fall on the ball's point tip over stacks of reading wrecks that beg to ask? If art is cyclical, then when does the universal Renaissance revival of poetic notion come back into slow fashion?
Thank you so much, Leopoldo and C&P. It's so lovely to be somewhere in person with Seattle community and those of you who've traveled also over our working bridge. It was really difficult being an expressive arts therapist during the pandemic, and really messed me up. So I have some new poems. Just when I was thinking that I was starting to write lighter poems, the pandemic happened. Back to my childhood, people. All right, this one, I'm going to start with this poem called Emergent. And that one was published, on the King County buses, which actually I was really proud of, you know. I mean, you get a lot of exposure on those buses. Emergent. Smiling wide butterfly wings, running feet on wet sand, reaching beyond cumulus-shaped dreams, loving as if our lives depended on it. Jumping with both feet, holding on to our knees, then our nose, then splash, that weightless joy that comes from not needing anyone to cheer for us or clap for our accomplishments. Tiny tanned arms, droplets of rain on bony shoulders, shells dropping in buckets, sing-songing our way back to eating our weight in watermelon. No one could say no to that. Remember when we knew we could sink straight to the bottom and come right back up by pressing the soles of our feet to the hard ocean floor? Thank you. So during the pandemic, the three of us, me, Jeremy, my husband's right here, and Elliot, one of the ways that we cheered ourselves up or just tried to deal, I guess, was to write haikus at night at dinner time. And so I'm going to intersperse the haikus here and there. And each line was written by one of us. New private spaces, poetry gifted anew, treehouse of awesome. This one is called The Act of Disappearing. I used to lie very still on the mattress, enjoy the contrast between its hardness and the feathers pillowed beneath my head. I'd spread my hair all around me in a perfect circle and see myself from above, cardboard flat popping up from my Sleeping Beauty book. I'd listen to my body falling and rising, collapsing and growing, levitating gracefully out of the fading light. I'd fall asleep and feel the spaces in between me and the rest of the entire universe. Sometimes the little prince would come and lead me by the hand from the bed into the room inside the house where the family sleeps and sleeps. Inside the house, which itself floats, which means it may have been a boat. The narrator may very well be asleep. This may cause you to wonder if you can or cannot believe what is being said. Do not fear. This is normal. This is in fact quite an appropriate way to feel when you don't quite fit inside the spaces between the floorboards. I'm changing the order because, right?
Yeah, we get it.
You can do that.
Right. Here's a haiku. Clamshells on the beach, spaghetti and pizza dinner. Belle the dog says hello. Which one I want? Here it is. This is a newer poem. It's called Ancestry. It is my fault. Mea culpa. I say it like a dream. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Pardon me. I am not accented enough, not alien enough, not hairy enough, not dirty enough. If only I dared to kiss you or make you escargot, perhaps they'd make room for me in history books. Oh wait, my bad, they have. I am 14, ready to be married to the king, rosy cheeks, plump, Dauphine de France. I am pregnant again. The gardens are pretty this time of year. Anything else, madame? Merci, Alphonse, rien, je suis fatigued at the blue sky and see the giant. You guys like prose?
Yeah.
Prose-ish, poetry-ish? I'm allowed to read some prose.
Absolutely, whatever. It's oral. It's an oral art.
All right, this piece is called Pool. So I keep popping my P's on there. I am standing in a plastic kiddie pool in the backyard of my uncle's house in Brittany. 15 months, perhaps. First steps. The pool is in the shape of a giant sneaker shoe with stars and stripes on it. American flag colored. Curious. I would like to know whether the photograph in question was taken by my uncle or by my father. When I say father, I mean the man who married my mother when I was between 1 and 2. What is curious about the American-themed kiddie pool is that my biological father was American. I say was because the man was until he became a is a few years ago when we met for the first time on the shores of Lake Tahoe. Who bought this kiddie pool for me? And why would they choose to give this to my mother who had left the man who had impregnated her? Does anyone ever want to be reminded of what could have been and wasn't? I am standing there in the pool, barely 1.5. I am standing there like a bowling pin that could be knocked down at any moment. I am looking straight at the person behind the lens. A man, I assume? My little chubby arms are just a bit outstretched. Any minute, I could fall or I could take flight. Mostly, like all tiny bipeds who have just learned how to stand and walk on their own, I am proud that I can balance. Though I have seen the picture a million times, today I notice the box I am holding in my left hand. A simple, clear plastic box, a piece of discarded packaging, something to fill up with water and dump out, and again and again and again, because who needs real toys when one is so small and that interested in the world? Anything will do. I am standing in the American shoe kiddie pool, holding a box, looking at the camera. I am standing there, proud of my ability to do so much at once. Gravity is being good to me. What I'm failing to notice is the absence that is screaming in the background, the absence that to this day I do my best to avoid, because I won't ever find a hose long enough to fill that particular pool. My mother. She's there in the photograph, sitting on what looks like August grass, a foot away from the pool. Her body is turned toward me. It's as if I've been standing there forever now. You might think she might be looking at me, or at the very least, at the camera. But if you place your finger on the photograph and trace a line from her eyes to where she's looking, you'll notice the line does not land on me or on the photographer. In fact, it barely brushes past my neck, this line, and doesn't land anywhere inside the frame. If I remember the place correctly, my mother's focus in the photograph should be landing on some bushes in the back of the old house in Kirkham. But it doesn't even seem to land there. Her gaze goes past me, past the camera, past the frame, past the bushes. My mother is looking at a vastness that doesn't seem to end. She is looking nowhere. She is a tiny splash in the cavernous ocean of my memories. Thank you.
You can't fool me, that's poetry.
Am I doing that time?
I have no idea. I don't, it's up to you. Figure it out.
guys up for a couple more?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is called Nest. Let me give you a haiku. We need a haiku. I need a haiku. Hiding surprise rocks. Juicy mango for dinner. Fell into wet grass. Nest. As you sleep, birds sing for you, the sweet relief you have craved your entire life. Ground, wings, afloat, clouds. It will not be enough. It will never be enough. Your crib with the broken bars, your father's hands crushing the earth like a giant hiking Mount Everest, your nest forever empty. Goodness is learned, kindness is given, gifts are bestowed freely by those who walked before us. No one walked before you. They ran in panic towards yesterday's shadows, confusing graveyards for kingdoms. They made you princess of doom, crowning you with thorns in hope you'd bear their fruits. Gravel, dirt, dark, ask, beg, give up. A little girl's hand rises from the darkness. No one takes it. No one sees it. Somewhere in the distance, a bird. Sing now, bird. Sing. Thank you. I think I'll do one more. Here's a haiku. Buckets of sunshine. Long weekends make for short weeks. Yay, water gun fights. Trying to decide what to finish with here. All right. This is called Birth, a Silent Performance. Enter a pregnant woman with boats attached to her hands and feet. Exhausted, worn out, worried, expectant. She has gone through many trials, some of which remain tied to her. She sits and washes herself with the boat strings, which are ocean pieces. She eats the ocean pieces and drinks from the boats. She is momentarily satisfied. She looks at the sky, hoping for calm, and decides it's a good time to go to sleep. She arranges the boats in a straight line and kisses them, one by one. She lies down. Her hand becomes a boat. The sound of rain. Rain that becomes heavier and wakes her up. Rain, now a thunderstorm. It gets worse. The cramping begins. The woman tries to find shelter. She gets tangled in the boats. She tries to free herself from them. Can't. Cramping, now worse. A pillow is born. The woman doesn't understand where her baby is. She becomes furious. She kicks the pillow that is also a boat. She kicks herself. The woman doesn't understand where her baby is. During her rage, she notices a red ribbon on the pillow. She pulls on it. It unravels. On the end of it, a knife. The woman ponders what to do. Finally, she cuts the ties from the boats. And as she finishes, she drops the knife. Red rose petals come out of her mouth. The knife is covered. She becomes serene and purposeful. She gathers the pillow and the bits of the ocean, and she methodically makes a baby. She bathes, feeds, and sings the baby to sleep. She picks up the petals, holds a funeral for the knife and the boats. She walks out, leaving a trail of petal. The ocean becomes whole and hums.
Bravo.
I think this is in one of the first issues of Breathe, the e-zine, or the, online magazine that I talked about earlier. It starts like this. I'm tired of educating white people. Yet I am a white person too. Not really, but really. White outside, but darker inside. I feel my inner Mapuche. Never conquered by the Inca, never conquered by the Spaniards, still fighting for land in violent confrontations. I am never conquered in educating myself. For the educator speaks to the soldier who goes to battle and asks, do you know what you are fighting for? The causes of war, the futility of war. Please spend your time in poems and great tales. Paint portraits and your heart will soften. I'm tired of being distracted by who puts the ball in the basket more better. In a set period of time, who sings a song better than the people who listen, who puts words together better than the people who listen, who is better than you, who is better than me. I'm tired of not looking Mapuche, so you can see all of me, so I could see all of me in your eyes, so I could feel the suffering that is also my heritage, my grandmother's suffering, her brown skin a clue to her suffering. No one wants this. Life is suffering enough. Are you not tired of educating too those resistant to learning? Let us cease this endless, unnecessary suffering. There is enough suffering in just being alive. Let us all live 100 years. Live long enough to be kind to one another on our planet, this planet, moving through deep space to somewhere good, I hope.
Homeless poem. This poem requires certain words of uncertainty, yet it is the very nature of being without certainty that hinders words certainly required of it. Being homeless, this poem will likely be ignored or discarded or hounded and rounded up. It might snidely be told to stop sponging words from upstanding poems, the few words it possesses impounded or trashed. In the eyes of some critics, this poem is clearly disreputable, a hair's breadth from criminal. Yet, this poem did not set out to be unworthy. As with most poems, this poem was born to high hopes. But, as sometimes happens, a fallible poet nurtured it, and society bestowed little value. While this homeless poem may not be bum-rushed into a metaphorical slammer, it might easily find itself in analogical purgatory, a lexical encampment set aside for unworthy ditties, until such time as its sullied syntaxes of uncertainty have been ascertained and most certainly cleansed. Box for no one. A misfit spirit of death dance decay smells the beauty in darkness. His dog hairs carry historical lice, singing beneath the sobbing, bound to a spell confounding the critics. He shimmers iridescent, faith as steady as the tide is in him, even if unrecognized. His home once housed a refrigerator, now recycled as a shack. Cardboard invention and genius of man, thrown away society, what is obsolete might become retro if life passes enough nights. Rain steady as full moon light falls on him after he's already gone. Those shreds of melted board clog the sewer. Broken glasses shine eerily. One shoe without laces gives evidence, all clues from the left behind. Street sweepers and night watchers tidy up, ready for the next tenant. Her new home now delivered off the truck, once housed our broken machine. Delusional illusion. I want the illusion of America, so I lie to myself we are not buried under discarded nostalgia merchandise in the garbage dump of hubris history. I need the illusion of America, so I lie to myself we are not lemmings competing with other lemmings leaping into the follow the fascist leader abyss. I desire the illusion of America, so I lie to myself we are more than a mythology of liberty and justice created equal folklore sitting on a dusty shelf in a used bookstore. I require the illusion of America, so I lie to myself America is not lying, but is persistent in evoking ideal beliefs until the idea of America is conjured up from sea to shining sea. And one more. I have to listen again. I note my Nina Simone CDs hiding on a shelf, surrounded by good but lesser music. How long since I listened, heard her backlash goddams, the demand for sugar in her bowl, and her wish to know the feeling of free. Being a universal language, music is how she embodied unapologetic truth. As her music still moves the soul, and her soul still moves the music, she is still not to be ignored. Fraught with rejections and failed affections, no one burned more fiercely when piercing an audience with her fixed, defiant stares. But it was not the audience she disdained. They were simply the surrogates for society intent on beating back the young, gifted, and black. Through the pain projected in her voice, her torment remains embedded on these tracks, and now, again, in me. Has anything changed, really? Black was the color of her true love's hair. I'm now mostly gray, but she still put a spell on me.
Yeah. Here we go. Shooting children. We have another massacre this week. In an elementary school in Texas, 17 children and 2 teachers sacrificed to appease the gun gods. Guns, guns, more guns, still the drums roll. People kill people, not guns, despite the toll exacted. Lives, loves, dreams, hopes all, lead, maelstrom, and gulp. Yet another charnel, a tribute to stupidity, lust for power, greed. Should an unvetted teen be assault rifle equipped? In moments, innocent little bodies to bits shred. The good guy with a gun by aiming handicapped. All reasonable, well-meaning individuals concur, depraved slaughter of innocents must not recur. Self-evident is the need to restrict access to all weapons. Leave not a mote chance of a massacre. The elephants note not bodies trampled underfoot in their lust for power. They rush to court their gun gods whose greed satisfies their lust. Hand in hand, these ghouls dance their foxtrot. Now is the time for thoughts and prayers they intone. Pardon me, a little. I should have printed it on separate pages. Oh, yeah. The do-nothing's thoughts are worth less than a fishbone. Their prayers are either all to Mammon or their God is busy playing chess with Satan. In churches, temples, they pray to Jesus Christ, the Son of God. They plead for Him to intercept sins of omission and commission, God's punishment. But Jesus, sweet Jesus, crucified Jesus, hears only lament. Bereaved, anguished mothers raise heartrending cries to indifferent skies. Their breastfeeding sighs ruins of lives. Self-blame haunts hapless fathers. Forlorn families mourn preventable sacrifices. Second Amendment rights to arms granted to all and sundry hold the nation fettered in thrall. In a thriving society, discretion, decency prevail over all. Worldly disgrace, shame impose curbs over the free for all. The nation writhes in pain, helpless agony. Blind gun aficionados show no empathy. Days after gruesome massacre, brandish weaponry. Cannot reign then be this barbaric butchery? If the pound of flesh is the Second Amendment granted, should not laws address prevention of bloodshed? The purveyor as well as the actor pilloried. Yet our partisan Congress is deadlocked. Let us each remember a murdered child, each gun advocate endlessly remind, these children are dead, you are cursed, boycott socially, the unrepentant accursed. At Wale, good guys with guns stood around, oh for a R5D5, low slung, X-ray vision equipped, the shooter's shots of it bounce, it him, shoots dead. Natural stupidity by artificial intelligence conquered. Subverters of measures preventing murder are guilty of murder. In days to come, with dotage and frailty their portion, the voices of bereaved mothers' agony will ring in their minds, evoke hellish frenzy. When leaders of the people carelessly squander lives of children, our dearest, our future, it's past time to tear all blindfolds asunder, find new leaders that serve the people with honor. Okay, this is a little different thing. Estelle. O my beloved, shining star in darkest night, all nooks and cranny of my spirit throb with joy in your love light. Come to me, dearest, wooed in whispers, words heartfelt, lips closed, gently brushing, ears soft, words repeated, ending, reluctant. Come to me, dearest, kisses exchange, lips, hearts contact. Wake me not from this is my thought, all being focused to this protract. Come to me, dearest, arms enfolded, hearts held touching tight. Oh, gorgeous, what a fountain of delight. If a dream, let me pass away tonight. Come to me, dearest, love you I will, be your blithe spirit, tell you tales to pique your interest. Sherazade each night, an Arabian night. Come to me, dearest. Right. Now, I have just one more for Dorothy. Okay. All right. The breakdown. Tearing oneself away from wife importunate, I drove recklessly to son's place, mind darkly grappling with this thought, entered the class before it start. At son's street front, abruptly stopped car, he emerged. Come with me to class. He demurred. You can't go to class, it's cancelled. Enraged, I stood in the street in the dark, brooding morning, yelled, you are not my son. opinion I was taken in. The enormity of my words, the loss of control dissolved into a flood of tears. The children were off to school. You need to take him to emergency, their mother said. So we set forth on a journey that we never repeat. Of that I shall speak anon. Where the mind is clear, no dark specks of illness linger, no greater joy can life offer for one that has the dark side warrior.
So peace seems to be a theme tonight, peace and violence. So I'm going to read a little something that comes from a project I just recently completed, the Postcard Festival put on by Cascadia Poetics Lab. It's really cool. Every July 5th through the end of September, you get put on a list with 31 other people, and you're supposed to write a poem every day and send it out on a postcard to those people. It's super fun. You can have fun with making the postcards too. Okay, I'll read. But what does the sun eat? What is striving for peace, if not the intentional and productive guidance of destruction? Poetry written is an assault on a blank page. The land eats, the beast eats, the plant eats, the land, and all eat of sun or of shadow. This one also comes out of that project. Where the river bends. The trip ended with a mother-daughter dance as the sun set behind the gorge, behind the bend in the river, behind the music. All the women in the song smiled the way they do, smiles some tearful you must listen for. You cannot see them. I wept, for the daughter's smile is the echo of the mother's smile, is the echo of the bend in the river. That one takes place at the Gorge, a concert venue if anybody's ever been, seeing the Lumineers. All right, and then I'm gonna end with 2 haiku, since that also seems to be a theme tonight. Conversations with the yogi. Extend from head through extend from head through tiptoe, feel stretch, strength from core, extend. Rise, do not collapse, collapse, says my back, thighs. No, on, says yogi, rise.
The first thing I wanted to tell you about was how I wrote my first and only limerick. And I had taken a tour. Maybe you've heard of Rick Steves. He's a local travel agent here. And I've taken 9 of his trips, and they've all been wonderful. This one was to Ireland, and our guide lived in a place called Dingle. And his father owned a music store there. And so when we got to Dingle, apparently he had been in the habit of doing, our guide had been in a habit of doing little concerts, and he'd invite all the neighborhood musicians, and so he did that for us as well. We sat there and listened to a wonderful evening of music, and then we were on our way back to our rooms to prepare for the next day, and our guide informed us that he wanted us to write a limerick. And I've never written a limerick. What am I going to do? And he says, I want you to write about Dingle. And we are on our way to a place called Limerick. There is a town called Limerick, and it's not very far from Dingle. So we were supposed to wait until we got almost to Dingle, and then we would read our poem to everybody else. So I went to bed that night thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Well, the words came very easily for some reason. And so I just kind of jotted them down and went to sleep, and the next morning got on the bus. And I wanted to go first, and he said, no, we have to wait until we get to Limerick before we read them. I was just overly anxious because I wanted to get it over with. And so we were arriving in Limerick, and he said, who wants to read their Limerick? And I said, okay, I will. And so I got up and I said, wish my girlfriends back home could mingle with all the nice folks in Dingle. The scenery's incredible, the food is quite edible, and the guys are cool, handsome, and single. So they liked it, and then we went on, and everybody read their limerick, and then it came to the end, and all of a sudden, we were supposed to vote, right? Well, everybody just started shouting, give it to Dee, give it to Dee. And what they meant was the prize. The prize was a little stuffed animal, a toy. It was a white lamb, and it had been sitting on the dashboard of the bus. And when I entered the bus, I saw it, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cute. I'd like to have that and maybe give it to my great-grandkids. And so all of a sudden they were saying, give it to Dee, so I got it. And don't win things very often, but that was quite a prize for me. And later on, as kind of a climax to the whole thing, my granddaughter, who was at the time maybe, 5 or 6, and she stayed all night with me, and she played with it, and so then when she left, I went into the bedroom, and there in my cat's bed was the little lamb and the little rabbit, which was also white, and a little blanket over the top of them, and she put them to bed, and I just thought that was so sweet. So anyway, I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to give it to her sooner or later. Okay, so that's my first one. The second one is it tells its own story, actually. It's an ode to my neighbor, Judy, and I just live around the corner. I had a really nice dahlia bed that went from my house all the way to the sidewalk. And unfortunately, I planted some Chinese lanterns, and I don't know if you know about them, but they're real pretty when they're in bloom. They look like a kind of a lantern. They're orange and almost see-through. They're so sheer. And they're really beautiful flowers in a bouquet, and they also look nice when they've dried. They become transparent. And so, anyway, I liked them at first. I only planted a few, but they kept growing and growing and growing, and they went all the way to the sidewalk and wiped out my dahlias. So anyway, this tells what happened then. I loved my Chinese lanterns. Their blooms made a stunning bouquet, but they'd grown and took on a life of their own to my neighbors and my dismay. At first they killed my dahlias, and then they began to spread. Their roots grew deep, and the plants would creep to our lawns near the flower bed. Well, Judy said, I'll dig them out. I didn't believe she could do it. I had tried before, but they grew even more. So I knew there was much more to it. Judy worked hard to conquer this foe, for it flourished just like a weed. Even though I had doubt, every root was pulled out. She had the grit and the strength to succeed. Then she gave me her own dahlia plants to replace all the old ones that died. My wonderful neighbor gave me flowers and labor. And I was so grateful, I nearly cried. She's a generous soul who looks after others, her mom and the whole neighborhood. She balks when I say, how can I repay? So I'll strive to pay forward with good.
Yeah.
but I was sitting there thinking about a beautiful little poem song that I memorized when I was much younger. In fact, I was very, very young. My mom was really into Christopher Robin. And when I was little, she gave me a record. Well, first of all, I got a book, and it was written by A.A. Milne about Christopher Robin. It was all poetry, lots of poems about Christopher Robin. And then I got a beautiful record. In those days, they were this big. And it was an album by a man named Alec Templeton. He was a blind pianist from Wales. And he sang a lot of the songs that were in my book. So I sang along with him. And I love those poems, and I taught one of them to my children. Well, at least my oldest child, who at the time was probably only 4 or 5, and part of the well, I'll explain. I'm going to stop at one point and explain something to you. How my son, who learned it, had different words to it. So I'll just start with what I remember. I hope I remember. Okay. Little boy kneels at the foot of the bed, droops on his little hand, little gold head. Hush, hush, whisper who dares. Christopher Robin is saying his prayers. God bless Mommy, I know that's right. Wasn't it fun in the bath tonight? The cold so cold and the hot so hot. Oh, God bless Daddy, I quite forgot. If I open my fingers a little bit more, I can see Nanny's dressing gown on the door. It's a beautiful blue, but it hasn't a hood. Here's where I stop. Because my little boy, he said it to me, and he said, instead of Nanny, he used his brother's name, Timmy. So he said, if I open my fingers a little bit more, I can see Timmy's dressing gown on the door. It's a beautiful blue, but it don't has no hood. So I always remember that and wish that I had a recorder at the time. Anyway, so that it, God bless Nanny and make her good. Mine has a hood, and I lie in bed, and I pull the hood right over my head, and let's see, I pull the hood right over my head. And I close my eyes, and I curl up small, and nobody knows that I'm there at all. Oh, thank you, God, for the lovely day. And what was the other I meant to say? I said, bless Daddy, so what can it be? Oh, now I remember, it's God bless me. The little boy kneels at the foot of the bed, droops on his little hands, little gold head. Hush, hush, whisper who dares. Christopher Robin is saying his prayers.